everyone to tonight's Planning Commission meeting. We'll start with commissioners' reports. Well, I guess University will. Start.
Sure thing.
Mr. Droyd.
Thanks, Chairman Schwartz. I have a brief update just on some ongoing work that's associated with our capital projects. So the first one is going to be the Virginia Guest House, which is the hotel and conference center, the flagship property at the university for our guests, and that'll be substantially complete in early 2026, which is exciting, and it'll have a big grand opening in April. So more to come as that takes shape. The Karsh Institute of Democracy, that is going to be wrapping up in the fall of 2026, which that project, as you can see when you drive on Ivy's, making great progress. Second-year student housing, which is immediately adjacent to the guest house and the Karsh Institute of Democracy, that is going to be a fall of 2027 opening, and so that is starting to come out of the ground. And then we have Darden student housing, which again, that too is the fall of 2027. So moving down to parking, we have the North Grounds Garage. So the Fontaine Garage is open. The North Grounds Garage will be the fall of 2026. And then sort of a quick update on Sycamore Hill. That's the property that was previously known as the Federal Executive Institute. That's currently going through some mold remediation. There's general refreshes, safety and accessibility issues that are being addressed with the hope to have first classes and residences in the fall, and the primary users of that will be the ROTC and the School of Continuing and Professional Studies. So Fontaine Zero Combustion Energy Plant, that includes 100 geo-exchange wells that are 800 feet deep each. So that will be, that's nearing completion, and we're hoping to see that up and running this winter. Oak Lawn, that lease has been finalized, and it's now currently with the city for review. So that's all.
Thank you.
I don't have anything to report.
I missed the tree commission meeting, but I know what they were working on. They've been doing tons of work prepping for the state of the forest report they do every year. So I know they're working hard on that, and they're still continuing to work on a kind of educational brochure for developers, hoping to keep more existing trees in the mix and how to plan for that. I also went to a Parks and Rec meeting where we finally finished going through all the bylaws. So there was still a lot of internal talk in that meeting, and had 2 great interviews with potential new commissioners. That's all.
Mr. Yates.
I've been teaching a new course at the university called World Heritage Trail, which had the big public pinup today, mostly wrestling with how to have safe transportation between the city and Monticello across Interstate 64, which is hard. A couple of interesting ideas that I'm hopeful about, and I'll share more information when I have it.
Right, so for the first time in my 12-year tenure, I missed a HAC meeting, so I don't have anything to report there, except there was a discussion of their 2026 work plan. TJPDC met last week. The really only salient piece there is a funding opportunity under Safe Streets for all of our various localities, and TJPDC staff has already poked the constituent staffs, and there is sort of uniform interest for moving forward with that, the idea being that the consolidation of this in one supervisory grant is going to get a lot farther than everyone else scrapping over it. Other than that, just as a housekeeping note, in this case a literal housekeeping note, TJPDC's offices are being renoed starting now, and they're going to be 100% virtual and out of the office. Not that anyone stops by sort of randomly to discuss regional planning, but if you do, that's not going to work. So just be aware of that. And that'll be through sometime in February, except it's going to take longer than that.
I had 2 meetings this month. First, I had LUPEC in November. There was an update on all the various transportation studies that you guys are familiar with, the STARS and pipeline studies. And then there was a kind of a lengthy discussion of all of the projects that are finally breaking ground, almost all in the next 2 years, and kind of how to coordinate between VDOT and contractors and the city as all of those happen. Because there's going to be projects happening, roadwork happening all over. And so there was a pretty lengthy discussion about how to coordinate it internally and in public messaging. It sounds like there will be follow-up meetings to get some actionable improvements there in advance of these major projects beginning next year. So then I had MPO Tech last week. We covered a few topics. One is that we're really narrowing down what we're going to be doing for Smart Scale Round 7, where I think I've said before what the potential projects are. You've got the Barracks and 29 interchange, how to improve that. Albemarle will be submitting a shared use path further west on Barracks. You've got in the city, our one project, our first smart scale application in quite a while, the Ridge and Main project that's coming out of the STAR study that's underway. There was something of a discussion of what one project that could be kind of on the bubble would be, that since the MPO gets 4 submissions, there's kind of 5 under consideration. But there are essentially widenings of the 250 bypass in the vicinity of Old Ivy, whether widening the southbound or lengthening the southbound off, or the northbound and connecting that on-ramp to Leonard Sandridge, where that off-ramp begins. I think in the end, or once they started getting out there and doing analyses, it turned out that the one that they expected to be in worse condition was actually in better condition than the other, and so they kind of flipped it. There were probably 2 other projects, given that I said 3 and I said 5, but not coming off the top of my head. Probably refer back to my earlier reports from previous months.
Nothing to report.
All right. At the BAR meeting last month, we there weren't any projects of significance, but we did spend some time speaking with staff, trying to give some guidance for the RFP that's going to go out for updating our guidelines. So progress. Hopefully we'll see where that goes. Does NDS have anything to report?
Chair, I just wanted to give an update on, we had our work session with y'all last month regarding the Tier 1 and Tier 2 amendments. Very productive. Staff has been very busy incorporating that feedback from the work session, and we anticipate coming for a public hearing, very, very lengthy ad we've been working on for January 13th for the public hearing is what we're aiming for.
All right, so now is matters to be presented by the public, not on the formal agenda. So this is, you can speak on anything except for the CIP. Do we have any, well, Dan, would you mind moderating this?
Sure. So I guess we'll start with any members in the audience. If anyone in the online audience would like to speak, they can raise their hand in the Zoom application. But is there anyone in person who would like to speak for matters of the public? See no raised hands.
Great. I guess we'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes our minutes from October 14th, 2025, a request for initiation of a zoning text amendment and zoning map amendment at 801 West Street, and a resolution establishing a regular meeting schedule.
Chair, I move we approve the agenda, consent agenda.
Second.
Do we need a roll call, or can I just do all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Now I think we wait until 6 o'clock for council to arrive.
I guess
Yes, let's-
before we recess, I just remembered one thing I did want to add to my report. One piece of news that came out of all that the project's breaking ground next year is that the Fontaine bundle, which includes the hydraulic roundabout, other things, went out to bid and came in a little bit under the expected budget. And so if you recall, there was a gap between the city's Fontaine streetscape project that went to the city line and the MPO Fontaine interchange project. There was about 400 feet of gap in what's like a mile-long project. And so they're hopeful that they can address the gap if we figure out what we want to do with it.
Just a clarification, you said the Fontaine bundle, but then you said the hydraulic roundabout.
The Fontaine bundle for VDOT includes a bunch of stuff. It's the Fontaine, both Fontaine projects. It's removing the left off of northbound 29 onto westbound 64. It's the hydraulic district roundabout. I think there might be one more. Route 53?
Okay. Makes sense. All right. We will reconvene at 6. Rory, this is your last meeting?
It is.
Commissioner Mitchell, you're holding us up. All right. You ready?
Have 15 in person, and then like 20 to 25 online.
Mr. Mayor, does council have a quorum?
We do have a quorum. Councilors Ostrand, Payne, Snook, and Wade are present.
Great.
And clerk, she is on virtually, so that I wanted to let her know who was present.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This is the start of our public hearing on the CIP, and just as to let everyone know how this is going to go for public comment, we're going to have staff present, then the commission's going to ask questions, and only questions. We're going to keep our comments till later. I'm going to allow council to ask any questions, and once all that's done, it'll be time for public comment. All right, whoever is presenting from staff. Mrs. Hamill, floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. So tonight, we're going to have a public hearing on the CIP. A lot of, or everything you're going to see tonight is what we talked about at your last meeting for the work session. It's maybe the first time that council is seeing a draft of the CIP. So I will quickly go through these slides, talk about what is in there, and then I'm going to leave most of the time for you all to discuss. And eventually, you will be coming to use this meeting to be making a recommendation to the city manager for what you would like to see in the CIP. So with that, we're going to look at a 5-year draft plan, look at the planned revenues and expenditures by category, and then, as I said, we'll leave it open for questions. I have a lot of I phoned a lot of friends and I have a lot of subject matter experts here tonight, so hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. So if we take a look at the 5-year plan, you'll see that this plan is basically every year is balanced. Revenues must balance to expenditures. This plan looks to fund the CIP with roughly $153 million of bonds, just over $44 million of transfers from the general fund in terms of cash. We are using some of the CIP contingency funds to balance the CIP, and then some of the other contribution from schools, that's just a regular contribution that they make for their small cap program. And the $40,000 is for PEG fees that comes from the state that we use for the public access studio. If you were to look at the expenditure categories, as these projects fall in line over the 5 years, if you were to look at the, if you were to say you were budgeting based on your priorities, in order, education comes in first, transportation and access comes in second, and affordable housing comes in at third. So looking at the revenues a little more in a little more granular detail, again, the general fund each year, we have a financial policy that requires that we transfer at least 3% of the general fund to, as cash to the CIP. Excuse me. And mostly the majority of our CIP is to be funded with bonds. As we start going through these categories, you will see that there are some highlights here. Just quickly, if it's a green highlight, that is an indicator that it reflects a change from what was in the plan last year. So in this case, for HVAC in particular, last year that was in the budget at $750,000 a year. This year it's reflecting just over $1.25 million. If it's in yellow and red, that means that what is the number that's reflected here is what the departments have submitted, but it is still being reviewed and under discussion with the city manager. And then if there's something in blue, it means it was added completely as a new project. And there aren't many of those in here yet, so I think from the notes, we sent you a list of all the new requests that were submitted from departments, and many of those we're still reviewing. But in the education category, excuse me, we are at just on $15.6 million in FY '27, or $61.3 million for over the 5 years. One notable change you'll see here is for the Walker Pre-K program. Last year, that was in the CIP at about $30 million. You'll also see noted that Oak Lawn is TBD, and we have added, based on cost estimates and things that we know now, we have added some additional funds to that project. Any questions? Oh, excuse me, McGuffey is one of the new projects that were added. That roof needs to be replaced, and so that was added in.
So what?
It's a trick.
Chrissy, I got it.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what project did you say we've added funds to?
We had skipped, oh, I'm sorry. Which projects have we added to in
Yeah, you said
education?
Oakland. You said it was Oakland.
I'm sorry.
Oakland. Yeah. What,
Mike, do you want to talk about Oakland?
Good evening. If you've been following the conversation about the pre-K center or the early childhood learning center for basically the new preschool, we had originally planned on putting that at Walker, and still may. It's still a conversation. But we've been offered a piece of property at Oak Lawn, which is right next to the Buford or our Charlottesville Middle School. So there's some conversation about moving the program to that site. So that's why it's sort of a maybe. The change in the value of that project doesn't have anything to do with the siting, though. That's just a side item that's happening at the same time.
No worries. So skipping to the next category, facilities capital projects. There is a new project here, the McGuffey roof replacement. That's programmed in the out years. That is something that came to our attention in this cycle. And then again, just as we increased the funding for HVAC on the school side, we also increased that on the city side as well. Public safety and justice. Here we're at 1.8 million for FY '27, or 6.6 million over the 5 years. There are basically no changes to any of these categories, with the exception of the mobile data terminals, and that was basically a change based on their replacement cycle and a few cost changes. Transportation and access, again, not a lot of changes here from what was in the plan last year, except for, you will notice that new sidewalks, there is quite a bit of additional funding that was added here as an investment. We also added to your packet a list of the tier projects and the funding for those by year. Dominion Power Pole remediation, that was something that was new that was added. That is to purchase, largely purchase easements or right-of-ways for moving the poles. The bus replacement, those numbers were changed just to basically reflect the cost of the buses. No changes in terms of alternative fuels or EV. This is just our normal bus replacement and the cost of buses. This is our match to the federal and state dollars that we get for that. ITS was a slight change on an annual basis, and the right-of-way appurtenance in this was a slight increase, and then the historic district, that money was a slight increase, but it was spread over a couple years, and we've moved that forward to get some work done earlier. One thing, as we're here, we've gotten a lot of comments on the bike infrastructure, and so Ben Chambers is going to come and speak to that a little bit.
Good evening, Ben Chambers, Transportation Planning Manager with NDS. So you'll see on this proposed budget that we don't have a change to our bike infrastructure fund. We're holding it constant at 100,000 for FY27 through FY31. We don't want to show this as this is all we're spending on bike infrastructure over the next 5 years. We currently, if you look at our Budget Explorer, have about $1 million sitting in this fund right now, and we have about $800,000 worth of that programmed out through the rest of this fiscal year. We're programming that out on things like the 5th Street cycle track, the Rose Hill Drive restriping and repaving planning work that we're starting up this winter, and a protected bike parking pilot that we'll be looking at in the spring. So this will leave us with about $200,000 to carry over into FY27, along with the $100,000 that we're proposing for this fiscal year. We'd be looking at supporting planning for West Main Street and Cherry and Elliott as we're working through the repaving and utility work on those corridors. We're also going to be working with utilities and with our public works partners to make sure that those corridors are safe to go through as they're under construction. So as we're finalizing designs on those utilities and repaving projects, we're also finalizing maintenance of traffic plans that account for bicycle and pedestrian movement. I'd also like to note that along with doing a lot of bike work with the existing funds that we have, we're also going to be figuring out what the network looks like in the future. We have $750,000 that has been appropriated by council to start the development of a citywide transportation plan, which will help us figure out what we'll need to invest in next. While we are pulling that together, we're doing scoping of that over the spring, and we'll be doing planning through that for FY27 and 28. While we're doing that, we're also going to be looking for opportunities to align with any repaving or utility work that's going on, and may come to you in the future saying we need additional funds. But for now, I think we have the funds that we need to move forward with the work that we have. Any other additions for that?
No, I was just gonna add, one thing about this too is that Sam has spoken a lot about trying to move away from more of these lump sum accounts to more specific projects. And so part of that will come out of this planning that Ben just spoke of, as well as any of the projects that are bonded, because we don't sell the bonds until we're actually ready to do the project or the project is underway. We don't have to build up a savings account per se, as long as we are accounting for that in the future plans. It's, don't be alarmed that it's only 100,000. We promise you we're working on that, and we will be coming back. And there will likely be changes in the CIP, whether it's this year or next year. But first, as Ben alluded to, we're trying to spend down the funds that are available now to get that work underway. Similar to what we did with the sidewalks. Many times we were here and we had lump sums in the new sidewalk account. Many times, as Sam alluded to in the work session, he was saying, please don't give me more money, we can't do the work. Very similar situation to where we are with bike bike infrastructure, but we are working on that, and you'll be seeing more in the future for sure. Parks and Recreation. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
So, I guess I have two questions. One is, are we absolutely certain that what's remaining in the account, plus this 100,000 for next fiscal year, will carry us through all of our needs for fiscal year 27 without any possibility of any of those projects you just mentioned being?
I can't give you 100% certitude because we're still working with utilities and with Public Works to identify the project schedules for West Main and Cherry and Elliott. But we do think that $300,000 is going to be a pretty good starting point, and probably wouldn't be able to advance much planning beyond that.
Okay. Then the second question is there funding on the operational side or funding needs on the operational side that are limiting our capacity to do more projects like this and get more of that money out the door to build infrastructure? Like we saw with sidewalks, building up our in-house concrete crew and improving our capacity within project management in Public Works. Are there funding requests or funding needs for the operating budget that could potentially increase our capacity there?
We haven't identified any of those needs at this point. We're still trying to figure out what that network needs to be before we identify the staff that's needed to implement it.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so Parks and Rec, we're just a little over 2.7 million in 27 and 14.2 million for the 5 years. You'll notice there's multiple yellow highlights in this area. All of these are sort of just lump sums that we have requested specific project lists from the departments, and we are in the process of holding meetings for departments to come back and discuss that and make proposals to SAM. So those numbers will likely change as we get more specifics for how those dollars will be spent. The city county park maintenance account, that was a new request that was received from the county. Traditionally, we have had this line in the CIP, and we share the costs for parks such as Dardentown, 50/50. And generally, they identify a project, they bill us, we budget for the 50%. In this case, they've asked us for to sort of designate a lump sum account to address small maintenance things similar to our small cap projects that we have for facilities. So that is a new request, and we are waiting just a little bit more information on that. But that's why that one is highlighted. And then the parks and school playground, that was increased just slightly based on their work plan. Affordable housing, not a lot of changes here. Carlton Mobile Home was changed. You may recall in the CIP last year, those numbers were much bigger in the early years, million plus. At the time we were working on the CIP last year, their financing was not complete. That has since been completed, and these dollars here reflect the actual payments that will be the loan payments that PHA will be making during that time. And there is a balloon payment in FY30, which is why the big number is there. Technology infrastructure, these are just small dollars. The public access TV is the 40,000, which comes from the PEG fees that I mentioned earlier in the revenues. The citywide IT infrastructure, that is an account that we use to leverage different information technology opportunities that arise. We've used this to help when we move forward with our asset management system. We've moved this when we move forward in mid-year with a procurement system. We've used it to purchase TVs for informational purposes for different places throughout the city. That's generally what those dollars are used for. And then the voting equipment replacement, that is I think that was the second year of funding that those equipment needs to be replaced next fiscal year. So that is the plan. Those are the details. As you know, we're having the public hearing tonight. You all will use this time to ultimately make a recommendation to the city manager, and then the CIP will be proposed as part of the overall budget and presented to council on March 2nd. And so with that, I'll leave you here for any questions or discussion that you may have.
Thank you. Planning Commission, I guess we'll start with if anybody has any additional questions. If you don't mind, I'm just going to go left to right, or my left to right again. So Commissioner Joy, do you have any questions?
No questions from the university, thanks.
I do have one question. So, on the bike projects, in the past, we were kind of amassing funds in an account for this, and we weren't really able to spend it or didn't have the capacity to spend it on projects. And we're trying to move away from that to where we have like the sidewalks projects, which I think is a great example. We have a list of actual projects, and then this is what we're funding. I'm looking at the Budget Explorer, and so just like looking back at fiscal year 26, we had 60 million in new funding, and then 201 million in prior years unexpended funding. So like several times more funds coming from prior years. Is that typical? Is that what we want to see, or are we trying to move away from that, having so much coming from prior years?
Great question, and thank you for looking at the Budget Explorer. So there's a couple things going on there. Typically, we would not like to have over $200 million sitting unspent. That number seems like a big number. However, a large percentage of that is related to our VDOT projects that are large federal and state dollars. And so as we budget those projects, we have to put the full budget in with the expectation of those dollars. As you know, we've been working on that portfolio to move those projects along. We're well on our way with that, and so we do anticipate that you'll see that balance start to fade away. However, as we embark on larger and larger projects, such as $46 million for a pre-K center, it just will depend on what projects are in the CIP, but the VDOT numbers are largely what's driving that 201.
Okay, thanks, that's helpful. I don't have any other questions at this time.
I don't have any new questions. We all got to ask a lot of questions in the work session. So I guess my only thought was like not only thought, but one of my thoughts was on the affordable housing side and probably other topics. In the future, it would be interesting to have a work session just on a particular topic. Maybe not each department, because Parks and Rec has its, maybe we don't need to do each department, but on some of the topics, it would be interesting to have some of the constituents that are usually listed as taking some of the funding in the room, just to kind of hear what's going on in the larger picture from all the different levels of subsidies that are available to offer. So that's kind of a comment. I think that would be, we don't need to get into the school situation, but we don't need to do everything. But I think in that one in particular, there were questions about the funding coming in from some big new projects in town, and it would be interesting to have just a session with everyone involved.
Yeah, great suggestion. In fact, Sam has been using the 4 p.m. sessions with council to address some of those, and there's one coming up on housing 15th. Okay. That is mostly staff presentation, not the actual agencies.
Yes, Sam does a presentation and staff are available for questions.
Yeah. But we can send you that schedule too. I mean, we've already had some, but we can definitely share that schedule with you. Cool.
Lyle?
I have a few. I understand we were pretty far along on the walker design for the pre-K building. How far back does the Oaklawn switch push us in time? Would it be appropriate to push the funding back a year and pull something else ahead?
That's a good question. The Walker site was not quite through schematic design, so we were not all that far down the road. There is a delay, but because of the way that we do scheduling for projects, typically in kind of 1-year increments so that we land right at the end of a summer, we actually aren't experiencing a delay directly associated with the Oaklawn thing. There was an earlier delay associated with the FEI debacle, you might recall. And it's kind of that same year that we're working through now. So I don't believe it makes sense to switch the order of the projects just because we're already back into design. We're doing site examinations of the Oaklawn site so that we can take over that site and know what we can do with it as soon as it's available to us. So we are at work. It's just a different kind of work. And yeah, it's a step back, but hopefully we'll reuse as much of that design process, if not the actual drawings, as we can.
Thank you. I went back and read the notes from the 1975 City Council meeting where the current McGuffey arrangement was made.
Wasn't here.
I was not yet born, I'm afraid. Council was concerned about leaving the historic property vacant and possibly losing it, so they established a committee to study the matter, and they recommended the current approach, understanding that it would cost about $100,000 up front in today's dollars to make it happen. Could we do a similar committee today to look at this issue? Could we look at a hybrid option like we have at Jefferson School, where many community needs are addressed with modernized facilities? I list a number of possibilities. 2 acres downtown worth $10 million is potentially useful for many public purposes.
I defer to your friends on council.
So the question is, will we consider another committee? Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not, but I'm not going to make that commitment now. We'll definitely something to look into. We love committees here in this community.
Always. Thank you. I like saving money. I see a couple ideas on the sort of what one might call an unfunded list that save money. Solar and HVAC jump to mind. If we did say want to recommend funding for those, my understanding is that they would increase our overall capacity to deliver capital projects going forward. And is my math right?
In terms of energy savings, is that where you're going with that?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think for HVAC, we did increase the funding, over $1 million each year if you look at both the school and the facility accounts. Solar, though, we do have several installations. They're new, so we're still looking in terms of what those cost savings would be. We're also looking at other alternative ways to get solar, such as PPA and those other things. So certainly I think there's an energy savings with solar. I think devil's in the details in terms of, cost benefit of those, but we are certainly looking at all those options. I don't know if that answers your question.
Gets me there. Thank you.
Okay.
This is sort of a general question. Can we speak to the out years on housing? And we're looking at least on the CIP side, a drift down. I understand that some of that presumably is caused by these major capital projects coming to an end. Presumably we will be replacing those major capital projects coming to an end with new ones, but it looks like we've got a fairly precipitous drop. Is that sort of a follow-on to Sam's preference not to be accumulating huge savings when we don't exactly know when we're spending it, and how it aligns to our $10 million a year commitment?
I could say some things, but do you want to talk about this more comprehensively?
I'm not sure I have much to say. So I guess I'm going to answer first that this is probably an indication that we just don't have projects lined up at this point in time. I will note that the $10 million a year objective set in the Affordable Housing Plan was for 10 years.
Right.
For $100 million.
And we're coming to an end of that.
We are coming to an end of that. Now no one said that was I think that's been often referred to as a starting point, and we've certainly treated it as such. But I can assure you we haven't put a sign on the door that says closed for business.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
and I'm sorry, I just want to chime in. I know that we've had discussion as to whether that needs to even be higher, because of inflation and things. So I don't think it's gonna, there's not a commitment to continue it on.
Well, I was just looking at our 10, and it does, so I guess, is 31 year 10? Is that what it is, or is 30 year 10?
I think 30 is year 10 under the Affordable Housing Plan.
Yeah.
But I probably would have to go back and look at it
Yeah,
to
me
be
too.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's close.
Right. I mean, that's kind of, considering our involvement with that process, kind of embarrassing, we're stumbling over, but okay, good. You and me both.
I think we started meeting the 10, but
Right.
we formally adopted the plan.
Right. All right, that's sort of my only, my only question that hasn't been resolved up to my left here already.
I think I have a broader question. So you often start these discussions by explaining what a CIP is. My question is, what do we want from our CIP? What is our purpose of having a CIP beyond state law requires us to? And, you know, what do we want to get out of it? Is it to, for example, understand our future financial picture, or just to sort of keep track of projects that are coming down the pipe?
I think it's all of those things. I think your CIP should be indicative of council's strategic plan. So your CIP should make sure that it's making the mark there. I think it also should be following your comprehensive plan. Are the projects meeting the comprehensive plan? I think part of the reason why it is a plan and it's a multi-year plan is that they are expensive. And so we do need to try to chart that out and figure out what we can do, how we can pay for that. And so that is what I think is part of a CIP plan. I don't know if you counselors want to add something different, or if you had other questions, if that gets close to what you're asking.
I think I'm good. That's all I had. James?
Chris, I don't know if you said this, but I think the other thing I would add is to offer some degree of transparency to the community at large about what it is we're intending to use those funds for. And that's the conversation we've been having actually with council about the CIP in general, and why we're trying to expand and improve our reporting on how we're using those funds, and the quarterly reports and the online stuff. But part of that is also, when we look ahead, these are the projects that are upcoming, and being able to share that with the community, which is part of the reason we're also trying to be more specific in those lines around what the use of the funds are.
Thanks.
You said nothing? Okay. This may be a very stupid question, and I actually can't remember if I asked it last time. The West Haven redevelopment line item, we've got $10 million in there over the next 2 years. Is West Haven going to be complete in 2 years, or what is that? What's the $10 million doing?
I don't know. Do you have any more details on that project?
There's also $5 million in the current fiscal year.
Okay.
So
I guess-
not a stupid question. We'll get back to you with an answer.
All right. That's all my questions. Council, do you guys have questions?
I'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. It's funny to be over here. It's good to have a different view. So I watched the Planning Commission work session about this and have a couple of follow-up questions based on those original questions and then some of the answers that we've seen since then, as well as based on some of the feedback we've gotten from the public. So I think one of the biggest concerns that I have and that we've seen from a lot of folks is the bike infrastructure line item. And we've heard the explanation about wanting concrete projects before we have concrete funding, as well as the fact that there is bike infrastructure in other line items that's not clear. So, you know, the milling and paving is going to include bike lanes, or perhaps restriping in a way where the parking is now protecting the bike lanes, that sort of thing, but that's not visible in the bike infrastructure line item. And I think it would be, we got a suggestion from Mr. Joy about how to kind of add an asterisk or something to kind of collect that info or let people know that this will go towards that too, some kind of thing. But I think maybe an easier way to present that information is to have some kind of like collected subcategory list of things that are overlapping in multiple sections that people are going to be interested in. So if we know that X number of dollars for these 6 projects that don't read as bike projects are going to touch the bike infrastructure, plus the actual bike infrastructure line item, there's a section that says all of these things are related to bikes. and here's about how much money goes into it in total. I think the ADA stuff is a similar situation where there's the ADA line items, but then there's also all the pieces of different things that collect for ADA. And there's probably a couple of those types of categories that might be useful to collate in that way, just for communication with people who are concerned about those things and the ability to suss out a little more specifics that, you know, the specific categories don't really lend to. All of that being said, I think it's really good to hear the feedback from the community that we've been getting about how important bike infrastructure is, because I think that's where we've got room for so much potential. It's the mode shift with the most potential. You know, the sidewalks that people have been clamoring for, we're finally seeing action on those. That is great. More people are going to get out of their cars and have safer driving and safer streets when we invest in bike infrastructure. And when people get out of their cars, and the people left who do have to drive have a better experience. So it's better for everybody. So if the point of the CIP is to show that the priorities of council and the community and our teams that help provide that input, I think we need to make a bigger statement regarding bike infrastructure to communicate that priority. Whether, you know, we know the transportation plan is coming, and then when we have that plan done, there's going to be a lot of need for infrastructure and investment in that. So maybe it's $100,000 for the next 2 years, but the out years beyond that, we have to start planning for the spending that's going to happen once things start coalescing. Because what I am nervous about seeing is a lull and then a jump and then a lull and then a jump, where we have to save up for something before we can do it, when kind of constant progress is going to be better, both for you know, usage for people and to reinstate our priorities. So I that's not really a question as much as kind of a theory of the case. And I understand wanting to make sure that our budget is streamlined with things we're actually going to spend, but knowing that it's also a signal about our priorities to maybe pop some extra numbers on the out years if that's something that we are going to need to be investing in and we want to invest in. For questions, I don't know if this is CIP related or if this is more of just transportation work session related, but do we have a work plan for hardening our quick builds? And is that money reflected in here?
The quick build projects that we have out right now are currently under evaluation. So we put out a lot over the past summer, about $500,000 worth of quick build projects associated with urgent transportation improvements. So we'll be spending the winter and early spring evaluating those and figuring out what are the next quick builds that we can roll out, largely using neighborhood transportation improvement funds and potentially also Safe Routes to School funds. As part of that evaluation, we would also be looking at, are there opportunities here to harden that? Are there cheap ways of hardening that? Are there materials that we can put in place? We don't know the answers to those things right now, but we do have some funding through neighborhood transportation improvements to be able to do that going forward.
So there is some money available should we decide to harden a couple of those, we'll be able to do it.
Correct.
Do we need more?
We'll know that after we do some of this work this winter.
I'm getting a nod from behind you.
I'm not going to look behind me.
Okay, so that might be something to think about, is putting some more money into that project. I don't know which line item that would fall under, but having that ready to go. And I appreciate all of the quick builds that have gone in, and the fact that there's more, and the coordination with Public Works and getting the paving schedule and that sort of thing underway. I know there's a lot of moving pieces there. And for the affordable housing portion, thanks Ben, for the affordable housing portion, something that Rory had asked during the work session was, what are our plans for the approximately 11 million that we're going to get from the 3 big projects we have coming online?
So I think, you know, we need to get the money first. And I think as that starts to materialize, then I think plans would be coming forward for how to spend, for suggestions and approval from council on how to spend that.
Okay. I want to kind of be able to hit the ground running with that in the same way that we're not socking away money until we have projects. Here, it seems like we're going to get a whole bunch of money, but then not have the projects. And if there's suggestions for that, I don't know if that's something we provide now or we send an email later or both.
Yeah, I think either way is fine.
Okay, couple things. Something that we've talked about before, Crossings 2, and the fact that we've been spending a lot of focus on our low barrier shelter needs, but the permanent supportive housing, there's Vista 29 coming on board, there's already Crossing 1's existing, but the need will continue to grow. I know repair and replacement funding to keep people in livable houses, energy and insulation, funding AHIP at a greater amount. Eviction prevention, the tax abatement program that we're already looking at NDS for larger projects. I don't know if that's kind of an offset funding source for that. And then just curious about whether the plan would be to use it to replace already allocated funds or if it would be to add to it. I know that's a conversation that we probably have to have, but just to put it out there is something to think about.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because that was kind of going through my head too. I think, as every year we continue to talk about the CIP, the CIPs get more and more aggressive in terms of what we want to spend. And certainly as we've been talking over the last few years, we're not at capacity in terms of our debt, but we certainly are reaching,
fiscal
levels
stress
where
level.
affordability is an issue. And so as these dollars come in, they may be able to replace, because the majority of the affordable housing projects that are in the CIP now are required to be cash funded. They're not able to be bond funded. So there may be some opportunity to redirect those funds to some of your other priorities as well. So I think all of those things are on the table. And certainly I'm sure Mr. Freese and Mr. Sanders would love to start getting some of your ideas.
Yeah. Thanks. That's what I got for now.
Michael?
With K-Tech, are we anticipating that at any point over the next 5 years, a request for additional CIP expenditures related to K-Tech will be coming?
I would be shocked if nothing came out of a new facility like that we're kind of just stepping into and kind of figuring out how we use it. Nothing has come through yet or even sort of a hint of anything, but I should say that we're conducting a planning exercise for the long-term future of all of our schools' facilities right now. So if something's going to come up, it would probably come through that process.
So there's not yet a known sense of scale of what a request may be.
Not yet, no.
Related to that, if the state legislature approves and it's passed 1 cent sales tax for school facilities, is there at this point an expected date for when that additional money would get reflected in the CIP?
As soon as we possibly could. We've got a lot of projects we could use that money for.
Yeah, I don't know when it would make its way through all of the legislative, what have you, but we do have as I mentioned, our planning group that is meeting and putting together the long-term planning exercise to put together a capital plan for all of our schools' facilities, and just to be prepared for when that happens. And if it doesn't happen, then we'll scale down our plans or stretch them out over more time. But yeah, we're poised for that.
Yeah. So it sounds like in the next, say, 2 years, there would be the existence of a list of priorities throughout the school district that would be ready to be plugged in with funding.
Yeah, I would say somewhat sooner than 2 years is our goal. I would say probably more like one, and, you know, how long we stretch that out depends a lot on how, you know, how many new needs come to the fore. We're kind of just at the beginning phases of that process now, but I'm sure there are a great number of needs. So I anticipate that we're ready with a list of projects to get started on, and we'll flesh that out even more the more time we have between now and when those funds become available.
With the inclusionary zoning in lieu fees, discussed a little bit, you know, I would just say, just in my opinion, it has to on net be on top of our existing $10 million commitment. As I understood the structure of our in lieu payments, to not do that would be abandoning the, you know, working class families in Charlottesville. And, you know, that kind of investment is the only thing that's going to provide housing for people at 0 to 30% of area median income. So it's vital that we don't not utilize that and just view it as covering our existing $10 million a year commitment. So it sounds like at this point, though, there, you know, if those $10+ million of in lieu fees come, there's not yet a process for determining how they would be spent or how to solicit requests to evaluate of how it could be spent. Is that correct?
I would say yes, and I would say all of those decisions would be coming back to council for your decision.
Okay. And with bike and pedestrian infrastructure, there's the conversation around funding, which is obviously extremely important. As that money gets spent, what are the internal performance metrics for evaluating success or failure? How are you measuring how it gets spent?
We have several projects that we've identified for the existing funding. Those are projects that were identified in previous plans, like the Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. Once we put those projects into place, like the Fifth Street Bikeway, we'll be looking at things like what were the impacts on vehicular traffic? Did it change the delays? Did it add to the volumes? Did it do anything to that? Same with the bicycles and the pedestrians. We'll be looking at installing counters so we understand what is the change in traffic that we're seeing along there. We'd also like to collect community feedback and understand, you know, how people are reacting to this new facility being in their community, how they feel about, you know, using that facility. Does it feel safer? That's a big factor that we're trying to understand with these investments is this something that's actually making people feel safer so that they can use these facilities and actually feel like they have a mode choice given these infrastructure improvements?
And when,
May I offer an additional comment? Can y'all hear me?
yes.
Oh. Oh, wow, you can see me too. Oh, I just wanted to note that I think that the creation of this citywide transportation plan is also an opportunity to identify what our real goals and metrics are for evaluating program and project success. So as we look to scoping and building out that plan, I think it's an opportunity to, Councilor Kane, as you're asking, identify, you know, what are we looking for when we fund and build these projects?
That makes a lot of sense, and it sounds like that process will be a key point for really saying explicitly what our performance metrics are. Because I am curious, depending on what our performance metrics are we going to incentivize completing a higher number of low-impact projects or a lower number of high-impact projects? And I would also say our trajectory is positive. We're far better than we were 3 years ago, but obviously some of our larger projects are still experiencing a significant amount of delays and cost escalations.
I think that's a really good point, and I think that the transportation plan can be an opportunity to establish those priorities, identify, you know, where we are looking for, smaller interventions versus, you know, larger scale investments. I was going to say something else, but I agree with your point there.
And thank you. And then just to very quickly answer 2 questions from Planning Commission. One, my understanding is the timeline for completion of resident-led redevelopment of West Haven would not be in the next 2 years. There's a very long way to go just in terms of even applying for and securing funding of multiple sources. And then in terms of the purpose of the CIP, just for myself, as was outlined, I think planning, is obviously important there, and transparency for the community. But I do think part of that transparency is being able to clearly communicate to the community what are we prioritizing and what are we not prioritizing. And I do think part of the transparency is the community to be able to understand that, which I think we've made a huge amount of progress on in terms of the Budget Explorer tool and the amount of information and transparency that anyone can access there compared to, say, 5 or 6 years ago. I'm done.
A couple of questions. I'm curious, first of all, about the $100,000 a year that's being set aside for Dominion power pole replacement, and we've talked a lot about that in a number of different ways, but we hadn't ever talked about it in terms of more money that the city was going to have to put out. What's that going to be for?
Good evening, Brendan Duncan, I'm the city engineer. So really this is as we're start working with Dominion about, addressing ADA issues with the poles, there are going to be instances where the pole really can't be moved. Either, it's in the sidewalk and there's no parking area that we could take to build a bump out, and there's a retaining wall behind the sidewalk to where there's not a good spot to move it or something. And we're gonna have to, acquire right-of-way, either to build a sidewalk around that pole that's ADA compliant, or to, give a spot for those poles to move. So we don't really have an exact number of how much that's going to cost, but there is going to be a cost associated with this moving forward. So this is a little bit, I guess, contrary to where we're trying to get as specific projects, but we wanted to, put something in there to identify we are going to have to expend some funds here in the next several years as we try to address ADA issues as they, come from these power poles.
I may be taking an overly simplistic view of things, but it seems to me that if the pole is in a place where it needs to be moved, it probably isn't ADA compliant. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
If it's not ADA compliant, why is it not the obligation of the folks who put it up in an ADA non-compliant fashion to fix it?
Because many of these poles were installed before ADA was even a consideration. And with the new ADA rules that are coming out or have come out, even the ones that came out in 1991 allowed for narrowing of the sidewalk around impediments. With the new PROAG, the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, that no longer exists, that kind of exemption for power poles and fire hydrants and stuff. The new requirement is you have to maintain 4 feet no matter what. So what is ADA compliant has changed over time. And we have narrow right-of-ways, and sometimes there just isn't room within what we currently have as the right-of-way to move the pole. And while Dominion may move the pole of their own cost, we have to give them a place to move to, if that makes sense.
Okay, I guess it's easy for me to understand that since the pole was put there, the rules have changed, it is now non-compliant. Under those circumstances, I think Dominion has a right to say, we don't have to move it if we don't want to. We're, in a sense, grandfathered.
That's correct.
So we have to provide.
But as a city, we still want to make it compliant. So you're right that they probably have a case that they don't have to make it compliant right then, but over time, as poles get replaced, much like you would with a home construction, it's grandfathered in, but once you start making modifications, so if that pole gets hit by a semi-truck or something, and they have to replace that pole, and there's no place for that new pole to go that is ADA compliant, we need to work with them to give them a spot to, like I said, either move the pole, or it may be simpler in some cases and cheaper to just extend the sidewalk around the pole to get the space we need.
Another question on basically the same page. Right-of-way appurtenance, $150,000 a year. I understand the concept of right-of-way. What's the right-of-way appurtenance?
This is mainly guardrails throughout the city for right-of-way appurtenances. So as they get struck, and it's, repair and remediation of those.
Okay. All right, thank you. I was curious about a number of things under the affordable housing category. One, I note that in this year's Budget Explorer, we've got a total of about $6.4 million set aside for 2 PHA projects, the Macca site and the Park Street Church site. And none of the money has been spent, and nothing is allocated for future years. Is there an issue with getting those built? Maybe not Ms. Hamels.
I can offer a quick comment on that, unless Chrissy, you wanted to jump in, Ms. Hamel.
Please.
Those projects are still in the queue. We are working through the details of the loan agreements and expect to be able to disperse funds for those projects within the next year.
So it wouldn't be necessary to allocate other funds into the CIP to do that because that money's already allocated?
That's correct.
Okay. So I want to make sure it wasn't getting lost or forgotten someplace. I'm also curious about the sort of the progress on the Carlton Mobile Home Park. And I know, again, we've got money in the budget for this year totaling $1.4 million for FY26 expenditures of about a little over $1 million, so $371,000 left. What's the current status of that project and that funding, and is that going to be sufficient to fill us, to carry us through? Do we know?
So that's one I don't have an update on. I don't know.
So the money that's in the CIP is basically right now just the money that is for the loan to make the purchase. In terms of the project, I don't know, but you actually reminded me because that budget for this year is more than what we actually need to pay out. So we may be able to make an adjustment in these other years. I'll check on that.
Is it your thought that perhaps the $1,082,087 in this fiscal year is what is going to be necessary for this fiscal year?
I'm not, I know the payment schedule has changed, and I know there was a principal payment made this year, and I'll have to check, but there might be some extra dollars there. That's a good point. Thank you. Did you want to add that?
I was only going to add from a status perspective, the agreement that was struck between the PHA and Habitat Partnership and the residents was that they had 3 years to stay within the mobile home park. And anyone who, if I'm getting anything wrong, let me know. But they have 3 years to stay within the park before they then would begin redevelopment of the park. And we don't, now, the intention is for everybody who lives there to have the opportunity to stay within. So I want to be clear that I'm not talking about just, involuntary displacement or anything along those lines. I believe they've begun planning for the future redevelopment park. That's going to be another resident-led effort, and we haven't heard at this point whether there's going to be any additional requests for funding. The agreement did, I don't remember the exact language, but I believe it at minimum discouraged the idea of coming back to the city for additional funding.
Well, what's in the budget right now, let's see, that's, I guess page 10 of the CIP, it shows in the next 3 years, roughly $227,000 a year, and then a $4 million FY30 payment. What is to be done in 27, 28, 29 for $227,000 a year?
All of that is still just paying for the purchase of the land. So we are paying the loan that was,
I see.
The loan for buying the land. Yeah.
Interest.
Thank you.
And the $4 million is balloon, not the principal.
Thank you. just an observation that touches a little bit on something that Ms. Oshern had mentioned. I remember 20 years or so ago, it was sort of a thing to talk about programmatic budgeting. And then eventually, I think people realized that programmatic budgeting is all very nice, but you still have to make the numbers add up. And we have the numbers to add up. But there's a point out of programmatic budgeting that has a very distinct advantage in that if it is done right, you might generate one page, for example, that would talk about all the money we're spending on affordable housing. And the last paragraph, and by the way, here are other things we are doing where some of that money, where some of those goals are being realized. And so we could talk, for example, about the ADA compliance money and how that also works to facilitate bike ped kinds of things. And it might be useful perhaps in the city manager's office rather than in the budget office, if when the city manager comes out with a budget at the beginning of March, there is at least some discussion of some of those programmatic consistencies and overlaps. So we can look at it all and say, okay, now I see we've got bike ped infrastructure here, 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 and here, and it all fits together. The point being made earlier about payments in lieu under the housing, the apartment complexes, we have never actually had the discussion that I am aware of that attempts to say what we think ought to be done with that money. And I'm generally opposed to earmarking things because we're always then trying to figure out whether we can get around that earmark in order to do something else we really need to do this year. I would encourage us to think about it in terms of perhaps looking at that money as either perhaps being direct expenditures on affordable housing things, or to recognize that there are a number of other aspects of our budget that end up touching in some way on housing. Transit is one of those things. Workforce development is another one of those things, because one of the best ways to get affordable housing is to increase people's incomes. And so I would hope that we would not, whatever we end up doing, that we should not end up thinking of that $11 million as an earmark specifically to building buildings, but generally to looking at the problem of poverty and affordable housing with a broader scope. I'm curious to touch on something that was raised earlier on K-Tech. We had talked when we decided that we would buy K-Tech that one of the things we wanted to try to do was to think about how our complete ownership of K-Tech might interrelate with other workforce development issues. And I'm curious, who is going to be looking at the use of the property, who is going to be looking at this workforce development issue more generally. Is it only going to be the school division, or is it going to be the school division and some other group of people who are going to be considering these other issues? Finally, the last point I would make is that if we do in fact get given the opportunity or difficulty, depending on your perspective, of the 1% sales tax bump that would have to pass a referendum in November, it would be political malpractice for the city not to have a list of what would be spent no later than July 1st. And if we don't have a list of that by July 1st, anybody who is going to be campaigning in favor of that passing the referendum is going to be seriously handicapped. And so whoever is going to be in charge of that effort going forward, I notice at least one representative of the school board here and other people, both in the education side and on the city side, that's going to require a lot of work, and it's going to require a lot of thought, and it's going to require an actual plan, and not just, hey, gee, this would be really cool. So, again, that's not specifically your problem.
So I'll just chime in on the K-Tech, because it actually came up today in my meeting with the workforce committee that I represent this council on, where we have hired, the school division has hired Sarah Morton to help lead that, and I know she's doing a great job. She talked about some of the things that they're doing to help lead and guide that, so I know that that's being done. And so I just wanted to add that on to the first of your questions, and I think the other ones, I don't know if they're going to get to it. If not, I'll go to my kind of questions and comments. A lot of them have already been touched on. I was going to, swing back around to West Haven, but Michael hit on it and Carl hit on it initially. I go to the FAR meetings a lot, and I know that they ask a lot of questions about it, and so as soon as we get information, not only that, but also Kindlewood and its various stages and stuff, and costs are going up, and we're not as sure about the federal funding, even if it had been promised, if it's going to be there. So want to make sure. It's hard to determine how and if that's going to impact our budget, but likely a lot of times they will come to us if they lose some of the funding. These don't require responses because I know we want to move on. But the shelter, it's, we purchase it. Next phase is to renovate it, and then we have to operate it, and I imagine that's going to have an impact. It's probably not anything referring to this, but I'm just looking at the pool of money that we have to go from. And for someone who, another issue that travels on Locust every day, the work that they're doing there, and I know that they're doing some water main work there, but just in general, the cost of kind of maintaining all of the aging infrastructure that we have in the city. Just want to make, we just got an email last night from someone who's dealing with, kind of some aging infrastructure and things like that we're going to be addressing. I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council. Rory, did you have a follow-up question?
I just want to jump in real quick with a clarification in response to a comment that was made. The 11 million in lieu funds are in the form of a proffer of a donation to the Affordable Housing Fund, and in part required in lieu funds under the old 3412 ordinance. So I would caution against repurposing those funds lest we violate the proffer and potentially have to give it back. Of course, money is fungible and you can repurpose other funds.
Right, it would replace funds that had been allocated already towards affordable housing projects
could
from the
do that,
general
yes.
fund.
Ordinance specify,
Uh,
or
the-
is it simply the proffer that in those cases?
The old zoning
I've not
ordinance
thought about
definitely did specify the Affordable Housing Fund. I would have to check the new one, but I think it does.
I didn't hear you. You say
The old ordinance did specify the Affordable Housing Fund. I haven't checked the new ordinance, but I believe it does.
Does the new ordinance?
But that 11 million is all under the old ordinance.
Okay.
The question I was bringing up was not, can we use those $11 million for other things, but if we already have money allocated from the general fund that we're putting towards certain projects that are affordable housing related, does that 11 million replace that, or does it add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a policy decision there.
Yeah, no, that's a discussion to have, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. I think we're done with questions up here. We're going to open up the public hearing to the public. Dannon, would you moderate? And is there a clock that I need to pay attention to?
I got
or-
it.
You got it? Okay. Well, does that mean that you're going to cut people off?
I don't push it. That's up to you.
If you want to, I don't mind doing it. If I do it, I have to be able to see a clock.
Yeah, it should be in front of you.
It's turned around.
Behind your screen. It's behind your screen.
Oh.
Oh,
Thank you.
I didn't see these.
Okay. Sorry. I was looking at that thing. Yep. All right. Thank you.
We will alternate between in-person and online speakers. If you are attending online and you'd like to speak, please indicate by raising your hand, but we will start with in-person audience. If anyone would like to speak, please come forward, state your name.
Hello, my name is YY An. Thank you very much today. And I just want to talk about bike infrastructure. And I would like to mention we should caution about the evaluation because If you build a bridge that is connected to nothing and then no one uses it, it's not that bridge is at fault. It's just it's not connected, right? And all the success stories in many cities across the world, it was about the speed, how quickly they built that network, connected network, that led to the success of the bike infrastructure. So I want to mention that. And regarding like income and raising income, an interesting statistics is that on average, Americans spend $12,000 to own a car. And if you replace a car with a bike, for instance, you save more than $10,000 per year. And that's like $10,000 more money you can spend on local businesses. And also by riding bike, you get much healthier and you don't spend as much money on healthcare. Where does it go? Local economy, right? So studies have shown that this is really the case. Usually they say every dollar invested return about $3 to $5 to the society through healthcare benefits like healthcare cost, reduce congestion, local economy, and so on and so forth. So it's one of the highest return investment we have, but it doesn't work until it's connected and safe. No one will use it until it's connected. And also regarding climate change, investing in bike and climate and public transit is one of the cheapest, even like economically positive way to do it. So I just want to mention that. And given that it's really kind of baffling to me that city is not being able to spend the money, because everywhere I look, it's unsafe. I cannot let my kids, like my 10-year-old, ride bike by himself. Yeah, I don't think it's safe. So, for instance, I drop my son to Sunrise School. In every street, there's no traffic calming. Cars are fast, streets are wide, and it's every time I cross the road coast, I'm really kind of tense because cars are driving really fast. But there's no infrastructure to slow down the cars. So regarding school, I think one of the best way to let the kids learn better is let them walk and bike to school every day. And there's no possibility right now. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you provide your address?
Sorry?
Your address?
No.
We were collecting those for minutes, right? Name and address?
Yes.
You can, but you
Okay. I thought, sorry.
Don't see any online speakers, so next in-person speaker can come up.
How you doing? My name is Terry Tyree. I'm a resident at South First Street, a board member of Not Me, I Believe, intern at FAR, and a chapter leader at Virginia Organizing. And I just had a couple questions about what I heard today. Is this the only CIP public hearing? Why does a pre-K take $46 million? I got 3 kids, and so I'm not knocking education at all. I just want to know, $46 million, that's more than the Affordable Housing Fund. West Haven has no answer on how much the redevelopment will cost or when it will be done. You was knocking them answers back to back to back for every other question that was asked. West Haven residents primarily being here, speaking on the LV Collective. So to leave them out once again by not having an answer for the fund or how long it's going to take for redevelopment is ridiculous. And also the decrease over the years from for the affordable housing and for the redevelopment for the properties, the decrease of it, that was also a big question for me. What was the need in regards to the bridge that was just built? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure you all had something to do with that. What was the need for that bridge? And how was it measured? How much was it to build the bridge from Seminole to Stonefield? I agree. It may be simple to create a plan or a budget to come up here and to show city council, but for the public, I definitely agree. Asterisks, subcategories, subsections, break it down. Because if the only place that you have these meetings is online or here at the city council, you definitely want to simplify or clarify where the money is being allocated for the public. Was the funds that are being allocated for everything brought to the public? I mean, I know we're having a public meeting now, but I'm not sure how long it's been going on and if there is another one. And was that documented? Is the comments from the public a part of the CIP? Also, if there was $201 million that rolled over last year or annually, how come more isn't put into the Affordable Housing Fund? 1 cent sales tax referendum in November, well, that doesn't really give you much time to figure out or list how much money would be spent for the school facilities that you got from the sales tax. And a lot of projects we can use that money for, what are they? Can you list them?
Thank you, Ms. Tyree.
Because I feel like the money should be allocated towards affordable housing also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next in-person speaker?
Hey, how y'all doing today? My name is Angela Carr. I am a resident of one of the CRHA properties. I'm a FAR board member, and I'm very passionate about West Haven. I grew up there when I was a little kid, and then I moved to Friendship Court. So to see Friendship Court is getting, I'm talking about a full-on renovation, like a complete different building, a complete different setting. And for West Haven to still be that way, I know money is tight. I know money is the issue. But if we can squeeze money for poles, I'm sorry. If we can squeeze money for bike lanes or different buildings, bro, we can squeeze this money for West Haven. Y'all, we got kids over there, and the reason why I'm so passionate about it, honestly, is that there's children over there still playing on the park where the ground falling in. And we worried about bike lanes. You know what I'm saying? We worried about the bridge that we just built out 29, and the question when she asked that, I saw it in my head as vivid as day. A lot of people ask that question online. It's like a group of people like Charlottesville back then, now, and it's like a history group. And a lot of people are wondering, what was that bridge built for? We took away the left turn, made it straight. It's kind of difficult. It really doesn't make any sense. And then coming out of Mickey Drive, that yield up and then that circle, I wish I was here to have an input or something. I don't know who I had to talk to, but I feel like that is very difficult. There's probably been about 20 accidents, not even exaggerating, since that happened, not even exaggerating. 20 accidents, no exaggeration. In just that little area where the circle, there's been about 2 or 3 accidents within the circle, few accidents within the turns of Mickey. That just doesn't make any sense. It's not logic. I don't think that makes any sense for anyone that's coming out or that's going in, because they also don't know how to use that turn. It says yield, not complete stop, but they're stopping and waiting for traffic to completely go up the street when there's a whole nother lane. They don't understand it. So I think that should be, you know what I'm saying, something should be done about that. But going back to West Haven, I truly feel like there's some money somewhere that somebody could be squeezing from somewhere, and we can do a little bit more. Even if the renovation is not to renovate every single building completely, let's start with the park. Because we got these kids going to school, and when they wake up in an environment where they can't even play freely, that is not fair. I don't know if y'all got kids, but whoever got kids in this building, would you allow your child to go play on the park with the floor part of the park sinking in? Absolutely not. My kid's not going over there. You know what I mean? So let's treat everyone's children who are the next generation, this generation that's growing up, the kids that we want to run Charlottesville next. Y'all not gonna have those seats forever. It's gonna be a kid, you know what I'm saying, that's growing up in this neighborhood that's gonna be in those seats. So we gotta raise them right. We gotta look at them, no matter the color, no matter the size, no matter where they come from, no matter who they are. We gotta look at them and guide them and lead them the right way. We have to. I grew up here and a lot of things have changed. We gotta do better as a community.
Thank you.
Next in-person speaker?
Hello, my name is Mike Bodette. I live at 100 Avon Street in Belmont. I try to bike to get around town as my primary mode of transportation. I bike to run errands, that type of thing. And quite frankly, the bike infrastructure in Charlottesville is inadequate. It's not safe to bike around town a lot of the time. Bike lanes disappear at random when you're going down a street. Take my street, Avon, for example, where there's bike lanes for 20 feet and then they disappear and then another 30 feet later they're gone again. If the city's goal is truly to create and maintain a safe, convenient, and pleasant network of bike lanes for pedestrians and also pedestrian infrastructure, I think the city should consider increasing the amount of funding that's going in the CIP starting in 2017. Because even with all the projects that are planned, even with all the funding that's already been allocated that could be used, those projects are not going to create a safe network. There's just a lot of need and there's a lot of opportunities to invest in that. That was the primary thing I came to say. The other thing I'll say after those beautiful, I think, public comments is that we can do both. We can do bike lanes, we can do affordable housing. We can do both of those things. We can invest in West Haven. I think West Haven would also appreciate having some bike lanes so they can get around town as well. But we can do both of those things. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good evening, I'm Peter Krebs. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the Piedmont Mobility Alliance, which is actually an alliance coalition of more than 40 organizations, businesses, agencies, and groups that share a belief that a prosperous community is one that's well connected with everyday access to the outdoors for everyone. We're working on a sign-on letter and we wanted it to be have a lot of signatures more than getting it to you quick, so we'll get you that tomorrow probably. Some of the highlights have been addressed here today, but I think Rory asked a great point. What's the point of a CIP? What's the point of a budget, really, right? So we have a comprehensive plan. It talks about walkability. It talks about prosperity for all, housing, all these things. But the budget is where that stuff shows itself in reality. And the CIP is where the stuff gets made, right? And what we've seen is if it's not safe to walk, then people still walk anyway. They try to get around and they wind up dying. So why was there a pedestrian bridge built on 29? Because people keep dying there. In fact, someone died there just a couple weeks ago. So this stuff is crucial. And it isn't cheap. It's multiple millions of dollars. I did want to correct one small thing, which is the milling and paving does not create bike infrastructure. That just does the pavement. Any markings and all of that stuff, any protection, that's the bike infrastructure budget line. So spend $100,000 and you get the network that we have. You get the lines that get wiped off and they're not, protective or safe. So I appreciate how we're doing a very methodical way of planning, but we know that we have about 2 years before we get the comprehensive transportation plan. We have about $1 million in the bank for the bike infrastructure. I think fiscal 27 is going to be okay, but fiscal 28 will not be okay, and I'm not confident that you'll have the plan ready for that. So I would just go ahead and be ready with these projects that we know we're going to have to do. West Main is going to be torn up for the sewer line. Don't let that opportunity to repave it right with proper markings pass away. Finally, I'd also like to point to the Parks Master Plan. That's one of these unserious numbers. It's $500K toward a $78 million price tag. That's going to take 140 years to implement the plan at that rate. It's just not serious. So I'd like to see larger numbers for that. And let's see 2 years of funding for the bike infrastructure and for the quick builds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krebs.
Next in-person speaker.
Good evening. My name is James Van Vrenken. I live on Ridge Street. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. The clarity we heard from Ben tonight was very helpful. I trust him when he says he has enough money. I'd only ask that that be better communicated in the CIP and planned for. Like, we know we're going to spend a lot on these essential bike projects within the next 5 years, but it's not reflected in the plan. I'd like to echo the calls that a TBD or an asterisk or something would be clearer than what we have. I'd also like to echo Rory and Natalie's points on operational expenses, because we've heard a lot this year as advocates about opportunities that were lost because of miscommunication or lack of staffing or just kind of bad cross-departmental organization that I know it's hard to get right. The amount of money we're spending on like just public works employees, getting enough people out there on the streets who can build these things. We know all of that matters. My only other point is about the huge success this year we've had with the installation of the temporary quick builds. The feedback we've had as committee members on most of these projects has been overwhelmingly positive. There are a lot more places where it's needed. They were funded, as we heard, with neighborhood transportation improvements and cost approximately $500,000 this year. The CIP has it funded at only $100,000 for next year, which means very little money for more quick builds and no money for making them permanent, as far as I can see. We understand they can't all be made permanent right away, but allocating no money for them this year seems like an awful loss of momentum. It risks turning 2025 into a flash in the pan and wasting the money and the organizational effort that I've seen these guys behind me making and making great strides towards. That's all I have. Thank you very much for your service.
Any more in-person speakers?
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Chris Meyer. I am 124 Oak Lawn Court. I am an elected school board member. I'm speaking as an individual, though, not for the school board. I came to Charlottesville and have 2 young children and was a little bit really concerned when I started to think about sending my children to the public school system, a lot because of the infrastructure and the status of our school buildings. I know a couple of you have children in the schools, and so I just want to make sure we, as we consider the long-term capital investments, we are thinking through those investments in the school infrastructure to ensure our youngest are going to school in properly functioning and I think adequate education spaces. I think we're at adequate now, but a lot of them are needing upgrades and remodels. And I was really happy to hear, and I sit on this CIP subcommittee on this topic too with Commissioner Solon Yates, but that the staff is coming up with a list of coherent investments that need to be made in our schools. And that is not going to be, I think, cheap. We have not invested over the last 3 to 4 decades in the schools like we have. Set aside Charlottesville Middle School and I think this upcoming early education center, but that we will be needing to make substantial investments in those buildings to ensure our students and our children, our youth, as some other speakers just spoke about, have the proper opportunities, educational opportunities. Thank you.
Any more in-person speakers?
I think we need to, we actually, unfortunately, yeah, just one. I'm sorry. About that.
Any online comments? You can indicate by raising your hand. Chair, I see no raised hands.
All right, I guess I'm closing the public hearing. Now time for planning commission discussion. Do I need to what?
Mr. Chair?
Oh, sorry, yes?
I asked a question, I'm sure somebody in the audience can help me out here. Who is responsible for the construction and maintenance of any park facilities at West Haven? Is that CRHA, or is that the city, or Parks and Rec, or who's responsible for that?
No, CRHA.
No, the park, she's talking about the little park right outside the
Yeah.
The new one? That is Parks and Recs
We're
park.
talking about the parks in general at West Haven.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Work ASAP. So we have
Yeah.
2, 3, 4,
That's
5.
CRHA, the ones within the
The little
community.
park just outside of the,
That's the Parks and Rec, what they call Jenkins Park is
Jenkins, I'm
separate.
talking about.
And I think you're talking about the playgrounds, like in,
Oh, okay,
Inside of
okay,
the drive.
yeah, that's CRHA.
okay.
Any more questions from over there?
Thanks.
Nope, great. All right. So that's the end of the public hearing. So, yeah, I guess the way we've done this before is if you guys have amendments you want to propose, we can start again left to right. I should disclose at the beginning of this that I do consult for a architecture firm that is, one of their projects is one of these affordable housing projects. I am not working on that project. I'm not making money from that project, but I just figure I need to disclose that. And if we start discussing that project, I'll not speak. I'll abstain from that. But are you guys okay starting from left to right, or do we want to switch? Why don't we start with, no, you're not ready. All right, there we go.
So typically, if we're going to be doing amendments already, we should put a motion on the table that we can then amend.
We need, okay. Would somebody like to make a motion that we can then discuss?
Before that, can I make a general comment?
Sure.
Generally, I've been watching the events in Richmond with great interest. I keep hearing the word money, which is a word I'd love to hear. I think we will be having money coming to the city for projects in the next year, not just for schools, but for everything we do. I strongly advise that we have projects ready to go for state funds to spend on, broadly.
I mean, so, Chair, I mean, I'd suggest that if we're looking for a motion, let's figure out a place to start here.
So I just had a question, if we had just general comments that are not tied to an amendment, should we get those out of the way first and then transition to amendments?
Yeah, why don't we can, we'll do that.
Okay.
All right.
All right, well, I guess I will start. And I just want to be clear, I'm speaking these comments as a city resident and taxpayer, not in my capacity as representation from UVA. And so, first of all, I wanted to just speak that I'm appreciative of the ongoing commitments to those 3 top categories in the CIP of education, transportation, and access and affordable housing. I think we heard in this that these are sort of very near and dear to many people's daily experiences and knowing that this place can be the best version of Charlottesville that it can be. I find, and I think the work with the CIP team has been great. There's a lot of sort of great shifts over the, I think this is my second time seeing this, and I can already start to see sort of improvements in the tools of how we go about and review this. And I think what's tricky, I think, for the general public is, I think the CIP can be mistaken as a kind of a planning tool when it's really a cash flow tool. And I know there are planning documents that sort of help influence the CIP. And again, this is just more a general question about when we're trying to design consensus and trying to get people around these difficult topics of how to spend our limited resources. I just wonder if the tool in its current form is in its optimized state. You know, I think the council members had great points about how can we be clear about this. I think we see there's some confusion around bike lanes. There's confusion about how we're going to earmark affordable housing in the out years because this one shows it diminishing, but that's not necessarily what we're going to spend in the out years. It's just what's on the thing. And so I'm curious how the data portal, we have these interactive maps, I think of BikePed. Is there a way to kind of create links within this tool to sort of begin to highlight areas that are potentially being targeted in the CIP or some type of way to bring clarity to how we prioritize these projects? I know the 2015 sort of transportation master plan, there's already sort of great work done showing what areas don't have great accessibility. And so I just think, again, I think of the documents we generate and how they can help sort of either facilitate the conversation or kind of obfuscate the conversation. I just think there may be opportunities to try to perfect the tools so that as we continue out and look at these projects, we're just using things that, again, bring as many people to the table for the discussion. So that's all I have.
Any other comments, or do you want to start?
Yeah, so just I agree with you there. I think that we've got an intrinsic tension between the idea of sort of strategic, I think there's a misapprehension that this is a strategic planning tool, not a practical spending tool. And I agree with you that if the strategic planning and the integration of that with how we're going to spend the money isn't clear, what we get is a great deal of confusion as to what the priorities really are. The bike being an example is that we've got the beginnings of a strategy, but we need to have a real plan for the entire city before we can start talking about actually spending money on specific things. I get that. Of course, the city manager's position on this from a practicality point is that he doesn't want this to be an aspirational document. And he doesn't want us throwing in, just throw some money in there that we'll spend when we get there, particularly since the decision tree that gets made has to do with how we're bonding and how we're obligating the city. I think that's really complicated to get across. I understand that we're trying to hire a chief strategy officer for the city. I think the job number one for that would be, as much as developing a strategy, is developing a communication strategy for that. Because I agree with you, I don't think we're there. And I don't want to, and for example, for the out years of the housing, we're going to spend $10 million in those out years, but we don't know what we're spending it on now. We just don't. Will we find a way to spend it? Are we going to spend $10 million in 2031? We sure are. But I think that's a very difficult process to have a conversation about the cash flow and the strategy at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I wonder if there's an opportunity for some key or some way to acknowledge that this line item is in conformance with an existing plan, or does this line item sort of go with the comp plan? Does it go with sort of affordable housing plan? And it's just sort of an indicator when things are in conformance with previously planned sort of roadmaps versus things that are maybe new to it. And if you have the thing, people can then have a breadcrumb trail to find those comp plans. Because I think getting public engagement, getting people to understand how it's working all cohesively, that's almost impossible looking at the CIP document. Because like you said, and I don't think this is the document, but I just wonder how we can create links to help facilitate that engagement, help facilitate that understanding so that we can get to consensus and continue on it.
Sounds like a great priority for the new chief strategy officer when we get one. So, but I agree with you on that. That's one of the difficulties. And we're guilty, I don't say we're guilty of this too, but for example, we have said in Rory Clem's last 10 years, I know that he and I both made the suggestion over the past 2 years, is that we need to, one thing towards that was to be, and maybe this is part of a motion, that in the affordable housing space, do we need a line item that is based on the idea of, we know we're going to have large projects and competitive funding for it, we're committing to make the money, to spending the money, and in the sense that this line item is a strategic development line item, which will make, which is already causing Sam to grit his teeth, that we can then put out for competitive bid down the line. Does that belong in the CIP? I don't know, but in the absence of a strategy document that sort of links to it, maybe it is. And that's line 8 recommendations from last year, just in case anyone was wondering. So,
Move to recommend approval of the FY27 capital improvement program with the following amendments.
Okay.
If we get a second.
Second.
Great. Now we can amend that motion.
All right. Who's got an amendment?
I've been creating a tally.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Number 1, increase money for the Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund in out years.
Yep.
Keeping it broad.
I agree. Yep.
What are the out years? You talking third, fourth year?
That would be reasonable. Definitely not the next fiscal year, which seems to be pretty tight. Probably not the following year, but beyond that.
You're talking
Fiscal I think fiscal 30 is where we see the drop-off.
So.
So what years are you talking?
FY 34. We could be specific. FY 34.
I think what I would say is, you know, the CAF is a very specific fund within our affordable housing sort of umbrella. And what we don't have now is any real strategy for what we're doing altogether for funding things. You know, I asked earlier what the purpose of a CIP was. And, you know, I heard lots of good things. I think I agree with all of those. To be planning for things that are expensive, to tell the public what we're planning, what expensive things we're planning on buying. You know, I've been spending a bunch of time in the last week and also last month looking through the CIP, looking through old CIPs. And so I was surprised to read today an article that one of our CIP items is actually going to have an off-cycle budget request come to council in less than a week to buy a portion of the property for something that is not a surprise expenditure, is not something that unexpectedly popped up, but was easily knowable a very long time ago, right? I'm talking about 501 Cherry is asking for $1.7 million to purchase a retail condo for a grocery store. A retail condo that we knew was going to be there when the SUP was approved years ago, before any funding was even in the CIP. And my frustration at that not being planned got me thinking about how, just like we discussed last year and have discussed before, we really don't have any plan at all for how we're going to spend the money we commit to affordable housing. That sort of specific projects have popped up in there due to sort of one-off commitments that we have made, or just because they were sort of the only things that were being brought or people were asking for money for. And now we're finally getting to the end of that backlog of random stuff people have asked for money for, or projects that council committed to. And that's an opportunity to really think through what our plan is for affordable housing. Now, of course, we spent a lot of money on an affordable housing plan that was supposed to get that, and it came with a commitment to spend $100 million. Now we have $100 million or probably more out the door already before we're talking about making a plan. And that's alarming, right? Not just because we spent a lot of money, but because, you know, we spent a lot of money with few criteria for how we decided what would go to what, and because we, in many cases, don't even know what we were getting for that money. We should not have, you know, funded a bunch of money for Kindlewood and then seen it built, and then be surprised when residents are moving back into their homes and they're not at the income levels that we thought they were going to be, right? You know, all of these projects have very complicated and very large funding stacks to get done, and we don't know what those are. We don't get a pro forma. You know, I, some years ago, just for Kindlewood Phase 1, tried to compile all the different funding sources that I could find in press releases and such. And, you know, there's over a dozen I have on that Ceilopedia page, and I don't even know if it's complete. I don't think we're requesting that money or that information from our grant recipients. And that's leading to our overall affordable housing program being completely aimless. So we can get money out the door and we get some sort of affordable housing. And we hardly know what we're going to get, and we aren't prioritizing it the way we said we were going to. And so my recommendation for an amendment would be to create a plan for the process by which both the $11 million in expected incoming in lieu funds to the Affordable Housing Fund, as well as all new out-year expenditures, will be allocated to affordable housing projects.
repeat that to me again, please?
Create a plan for the process by which the $11 million in expected incoming in lieu funds for the Affordable Housing Fund, as well as new out-year expenditures on affordable housing, will be allocated to projects.
I'll sign on to that. And as sort of commentary beyond that, we're also speaking to a capacity issue, that we are now in a position now where our capacity to manage affordable housing is frankly crippled. We have one excellent staff member who is peering, where you can see her eyebrows over the pile of stuff on her desk barely, that we have, lost capacity, and we need more than we had before we lost it. Because we do need a strategic planning level. We also need a system that we can put in place that has measurables that are less ad hoc than what we do. We have measurables, but they are ad hoc, and we need a lot of that to make any of that work. Because I don't think we can get out of the starting block with your suggestion if we don't have capacity to do it, and we don't. We just don't have the capacity right now to do it. And I don't see a quick fix for that either. I mean, it's not a matter of finding bodies, it's a matter of finding the expertise that can come in and develop this over time. So I guess my also urging that is, and capacity is a big part of all of that too, because, we don't have it. I mean,
Let me try my line one more time and see if it's correct. Create a plan for the process by which the $11 million in expected in lieu funds and following expenditures will be spent on affordable housing projects. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. Dana, you got that? Beautiful. Next one I've got is increased funding for West Haven in out years.
We haven't voted on that amendment, if that was an amendment. There wasn't a second either.
Are we voting?
I feel like
What's the process?
let's kind of get through the stuff that we want to put out, and then come back and vote. I mean, I think it'd be good to have a list of all this stuff, because you kind of skipped right over Phil's capacity issue in that last statement.
Is that a CIP
I think
yet?
the capacity issue is an operating budget thing. It's something that was called out in the affordable housing plan, that we were supposed to be spending 10% of our money on figuring out how we're going to spend our money and keeping track of it to make sure that we're spent right. For a while there, we did staff up. Obviously, there's been some turmoil in staff related to that lately. I mean, I think it might be worth calling out that we need the staff and that we need the staff and the expertise to create that plan for that process and to run that process successfully. But I would agree, it's also not a capital item. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, and neither is creating a plan for these out years expenditures. That's still a strategy
No.
level. We're not,
Yeah,
None of
that's
this
a way
is
to get
CIP.
to
Yeah.
items in the CIP.
Yes.
A plan can be a bondable expense. I can't explain it, but it's true.
All right, so you just mentioned add money for West Haven in the out years.
Yes.
I'm still very confused as to what the 15 million that's already been allocated is.
So my understanding is that CRHA asked for 15 million to supplement, LIHTC and the rest of their funding stack.
Okay.
And unless it would be somewhere other than the requests table you gave us, I didn't see a new request for more.
That's correct. The money that is in the CIP is exactly what CRHA requested for that project.
Okay.
And they do have other funding in the planning of that as well.
Okay.
And
So
so
that's-
on timeline-wise, according to their last redevelopment newsletter in November, a few weeks ago, they are planning on applying for LIHTC for income or for tax credits in this coming cycle in March.
Yep.
I know they have their development plan in. It just got its first comment letter back, which is going to make it pretty tight to get done in time for March, but that's something of a tradition. as far as I know, the way these things work is they apply for LIHTC, they get the funds. By late next year, those will be committed. They go to banks and, syndicators to try to sell those tax credits and get the actual cash. And then they start building. And their development plan has 2/3 phases, so.
So presumably at some point, CRHA, if it needs it, I mean, next year's CIP may have out-year funding that we don't see, but back to city manager's plea not to throw money at something that they don't have a plan for yet, I'm not sure that out-year it makes sense at this moment.
They're gonna need more money. I suspect it's gonna be an in-year money request for immediate. But at this point, they said that's what they wanted, so it's fully funded.
What else was on your list?
Increase money for quick builds for next fiscal year. Sorry, Ben.
Would that be the neighborhood transportation improvement line item
That sounds right.
you're discussing?
Yeah. Is that a matter of just allocating things that is that just an exhortation that if this can possibly be quick built, try to quick build it? Is that what we're saying here?
My understanding is that they're studying this right now, this winter.
Right.
And will be in a position to spend funds soon, but they don't know what those funds will be. And we could this time say, there should be funds.
Mr. Chambers, would this be helpful to you?
Until we finish actually evaluating our quick builds.
I think I might recommend something like fully fund quick builds to the extent of our capacity to continue to deploy them next year.
That sounds a little more reasonable.
My language was increase.
With the language of meeting capacity that we've,
And, on a similar note, sorry to jump in, but it's pretty identical language. I had something similar for bikes to ensure that funding commitments in fiscal year 27 are adequate to address all urgent projects that are known to be pending or may come up prior to the comprehensive transportation plan's completion. So to the extent that they think they have enough money for the things that need to get done before the transportation plan is done, that's not a recommendation for change. To the extent that we have all these paving projects, hopefully the schedule will finally be published. We're learning that these things are happening. We're starting to understand the scope of the West Main and Cherry Avenue repaving projects, that we fully fund anything that needs to be done in the near term, that can be done in the near term.
The wording was address all urgent projects that are pending on bicycle transportation. Is that correct?
It was ensure that funding commitments are adequate to address all urgent projects that are known to be pending or may come up prior to completion of the comprehensive transportation plan.
why is this not sinking
I have one final one.
in? Sure.
Increase money for solar in out years.
That's not what my recommended path on solar would be.
Yeah, I'm frankly befuddled, bemused, and feeling betrayed by the current administration's behavior towards this. And I'm not sure I think we're so much in a we don't know what we don't know.
I mean, we know what the incentive structure before us is right now, right? Is that we need to get safe harbored. We need to spend 5% of what our eventual cost will be for each project to get safe harbored by July of next year, or we won't get that 30% solar credit for it. So sustainability is saying that we have plans to get the middle school and the high school ready in safe harbor by next year, but that we have 3 elementary school roof replacements coming up over the next 3 years. And as of right now, there is no way that we can get those safe harbored via a power purchase agreement where a private company will build it, get the tax credit, and then we pay them for the power. And without any money in the CIP for reaching safe, spending 5% this year to get the safe harbor ourselves. So the way I would word it is to create a plan and allocate any funds required, including in this fiscal year, to obtain safe harbor for IRA solar credits
For all contemplated projects.
for all contemplated projects. Otherwise, we're just throwing away $1 million. It's frustrating to me that it's gotten to this point after we've talked about solar every single year I've been on this commission in these CIP hearings. There's a line item before that. It's at least 2019 we were at, if not further back, we were talking about PPAs. We still haven't gotten a PPA RFP out the door. We still don't know RFPs or PPAs are the way to go. And now we're out of time. We need to figure it out by July, one way or the other, or keeping our options open if there's a way to do that. But we need to create a plan and allocate the funds if necessary to make that happen.
The wording I have is create a plan and allocate any funds required, including in this fiscal year, for IRA solar projects for all contemplated projects.
To obtain safe harbor
To
for
obtain
IRA
safe
solar
harbor.
credits.
Thank you.
Any thoughts from this side? I'm not trying to ignore you guys, but they're a lot more talkative.
I think Rory's suggested amendment on the Affordable Housing Fund, kind of setting up a program for how that is allocated towards projects, is related to Lyle's first amendment on increasing affordable housing in out years. Because I think what we're hearing is increasing funding in out years doesn't make projects happen. Like, we have to have, staff has to have a plan to spend that money. And in the affordable housing budget, there's a lot of specific projects in this year and in kind of the next couple of years. And so that's why the funding is higher, and then we get through those projects, the funding goes down. And so I think if we had a program in place where we said, we know we're committing, X millions of dollars to affordable housing, or we're getting in these in lieu fees every year, we know it's coming 4 or 5 years from now, we should build a program that makes sure that there are people in the development community who are going to build the affordable housing, or nonprofit developers, whoever it may be, who can start to plan for that and apply for funds, and also ensure that our the amount that we do have for affordable housing goes to the most high impact projects, or at least it achieves our highest priorities for affordable housing. So I don't know, Lyle, if you agree that I think maybe we can find a way to make those two amendments one, kind of like we're creating this program particularly focused on the out years where we don't have projects now, but we know we're going to be spending money on affordable housing.
So I would call your attention to last year's set of recommendations, number 8, which reads, create a funding line item for large affordable housing expenditures with a competitive program for selection for the out years. Look to start funding in fiscal year 2031. I don't know if we cut and paste that exactly, but
It's pretty good.
yeah, it's, ain't bad. I'm not sure which one of you wrote it.
It's probably some combination.
Right.
You might recall, I had a different proposal, slightly more expansive proposal last year that was argued down into what that became.
Yeah. Well,
but speaking of not having a plan, to my knowledge, we still don't have a concept plan for Kindlewood Phase 4 that we've committed to fund. Why did we pick that amount? Don't know. Because we don't know what the plan is. But there is an amount in there.
So Lyle, why don't you read back what you got? for all of it.
Oh my.
Just,
We've covered many things. The first item was increase money for Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund FY30 and forward. The next was create a plan for the process by which the $11 million in expected in lieu funds and following expenditures will be spent on affordable housing projects. The next was there is a need for staff and expertise capacity. The next was increase funding for West Haven in out years, which I think we're not doing, but it is written. The next is fully fund quick builds to the extent of our capacity for the next fiscal year. The next is create a plan and allocate any funds required, including in this fiscal year, to obtain safe harbor for IRA solar projects for all contemplated projects. And we talked about just copying and pasting item 8 from last year as well.
which I think if we scroll up to our second item, we can sort of mishmash together, which was,
Create a plan for the process by which the $11 million in expected in lieu funds and following expenditures will be spent on affordable housing projects.
So, I think the way to squish them together is to change the beginning to increase FY30 and FY31 planned expenditures on affordable housing by creating a plan for a process by which those investments will be selected.
Yep.
That sounded beautiful. Can you give it to me again, please?
oh no, he can't. He can't.
Roll the tape. Increase expenditures on affordable housing in FY30 and FY31 by creating a plan to create a process for how those expenditures will be selected.
I have increased expenditures on affordable housing in FY30 and FY31 by creating a plan for the process by which those expenditures will be selected. Do we have it?
Competitive program for selection.
Competitive program, a plan,
Yeah, do you want to add something like a competitive, transparent process, or?
Yeah,
Does that
I
help?
think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Plan for the
For selection
competitive-
of projects for
transparent.
those out year expenditures. Well, sorry, it should be FY30 and FY31 and the incoming in lieu payments.
Yes. Or for incoming in lieu payments and FY30, 31. Yeah.
Increase expenditures on affordable housing in FY30 and FY31 and the incoming in lieu payments by creating a plan for the competitive, transparent process by which those expenditures will be selected.
Yeah, okay.
I'm seeing nods.
Yes.
I've got a question that maybe could turn into an amendment. So I know that with the in lieu payments, it's like we don't want to start allocating them towards things until we have the money. But we have a couple of big projects under construction, so we know that some significant in lieu money is incoming. And I guess I'm wondering, are we going to be prepared to use that funds? And since affordable housing is a fairly urgent need, will we be prepared to move on it quickly? Or is the fact that we have to wait till we get the funds, till we know we're going to have the funds, to start to make a plan? I'm a little concerned that there's going to be too much of a lag between getting the funds, knowing how much we have, and then turning around and trying to spend them on important projects. And so I don't know if there's a way we can suggest addressing that, or maybe our First Amendment does address that.
Yeah, well, and while we're on that topic, and Councilor Payne also brought this up, we don't want to make these in lieu payments the equivalent to what many states did with lottery funding in education, which is, oh, great, we've got the lottery to fund our education now, let's just decimate our regular budget. I mean, this is on top of our $10 million commitment. And we need to fight every battle we can to prevent that from being substituted, fungibility notwithstanding.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a tension there, right? Because ideally, we would spend it quickly and we would have planned it already. But in practice, we don't have a good process right now that works. Really, any process. We just kind of pull projects out of a hat. And so that, I think, just the details of creating that are going to necessarily delay spending that money. That said, we don't want to wait too long because there are statutory limits on proffered money where we would have to give it back. So it might make sense to just reallocate, spend all that money on cash projects we've already committed and then spend other cash on future projects. But I'll leave those details to future people, I guess. Also remember that once we get cash proffers, the amounts and the purposes need to be specified in the CIP each year till it's spent. So I won't be here to remind you.
We're good with this amendment, right? Or do we need to add the timeframe portion to it?
No, I think it's fine.
All right, so we had to think about the solar, and we had to think about the quick builds, or ensure that funding commitments for all the bike bed projects. So I think we're down to 3, correct? Or are there more? Because I think we've combined some and kind of gotten rid of some.
I'm doing some formatting.
Okay.
Chairman, I just wanted to, again, this is me speaking not as the UVA representative, but as a city resident. I just wanted to acknowledge some of the comments that came up around the parks master plan implementation, and I understand these are highlighted yellow, so they're sort of not fully formed, but I wasn't sure how the rest of the commission feels about maybe asking for an amendment for some specific clarity around the parks master plan. But.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that by the time March rolls around, that's going to be much more clear. That was my, based on the conversation about these yellow lines, that they're still in formation and figure out what we're doing. I mean, that's sort of why they're in yellow, right?
I think the exact amounts might be in yellow, but I would be surprised if they were going from 500 or 2.5 million total to 70 million by February without some explicit discussion about whether we want to implement the master plan as.
And the reason I bring that up is we have this core thread about being a culture of planning and a culture of implementation, and it feels like this is a case in point where we see a completely divergent path.
So if it's helpful to the conversation, as we've noted, we have a Parks Master Plan that actually identifies annual list of projects that we would actually fund. And we're just waiting, right now, I was just conferring with Ms. Hamill, and we are waiting to get a list of specific projects to insert into the CIPs. So we are using that plan, as we've suggested we would, to identify specific projects with specific dollar figures, and I think that's the specific thing we're waiting for is the dollar figures. So that those are upcoming. That is the path we're taking, rather than identifying a lump sum each year for kind of a vague master plan implementation line.
Thank you.
I have the motion amendments all together to read again if you wish.
How many do we have?
4.
Okay.
One is increase expenditures on affordable housing in FY30 and FY31 and the incoming in lieu payments by creating a plan for the competitive, transparent process by which those expenditures will be selected.
Hello?
Yes.
Could we say FY '29? Why do we have to go out?
I think the concern, the specific 30 for Mr. Mitchell was that that's when the funding drops. But I would be open to moving it further.
Well, it does drop a bit. I'm just looking at some of these zeros out here that we know are going to be filled up.
true.
So I was just suggesting maybe moving it back a bit. Also, maybe that would give the whole planning process more, you know, like we want this to happen.
All right, so
Sooner.
now you're starting as early as
Yeah,
fiscal year '29.
yeah. I mean, we want to be ready, you know, this whole tying in with the planning of how to spend these, making a process for how to spend the funds, that needs to happen sooner. So I don't know if that would help to just back that up.
Mr. Mitchell, do you have any issue with that? Happy to. FY29, FY30, and FY31, and the incoming in lieu payments by creating a plan for the competitive, transparent process by which those expenditures will be selected. There is a need for staff and expertise capacity. Fully fund quick builds to the extent of our capacity for next fiscal year. Create a plan and allocate any funds required, including in this fiscal year, to obtain safe harbor for IRA solar projects for all contemplated projects.
And the item for there was a need for staff and expertise capacity is related to item 1, correct? Or is it just?
Oh, yes.
Okay. We need to specify that that's what that's about. It's not throughout all of city government. Although it
Which,
may
you know,
may not
some
be a
truth
bad
to that,
thing,
yeah.
But, you know, it's,
I'm adding that into item 1.
okay.
The only edit I'd offer is to swap in lieu payments and allocations in out years. Put the in lieu payments first, they're happening first.
Okay.
Any issue with that? Great.
Makes sense. All right. Now I think we can vote on each one. That makes sense?
We probably can vote on them as a block since we seem to have consensus.
Okay. Everyone okay with that? or-
Are there 3 of them? Because I think, Lyle, you said there were 4, but I heard 3.
He combined the, adding the,
Staff
I
capacity.
hate to ask you to read them again, but.
But I think we should read them all as a block,
Okay.
if we're gonna vote on them as a block.
Yeah.
all right, let's do that.
So. So this is an add-on to your original motion of as follows.
Yeah, this is an amendment to the motion.
Yes, okay.
Phil, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make the changes to the language that you requested, and I don't see a way to do it.
Increase expenditures on affordable housing to include the incoming lieu payments and in years 50, yeah. Yeah, but I put it ahead of the fiscal year '25 to be, yeah, just flip, and then flip them that way.
Got it.
And then figure out whatever conjunction didn't work and make it work. And then- Right.
Increase expenditures on affordable housing,
Yeah, me too.
including the incoming in lieu payments in FY29, FY30, and FY30, by creating a plan for the competitive, transparent process by which those expenditures will be selected. There is a need for staff and expertise capacity.
Okay.
Fully fund quick builds to the extent of our capacity for next fiscal year. Create a plan and allocate any funds required, including in this fiscal year, to obtain safe harbor for IRA solar projects for all contemplated projects.
We miss the bike half of the quick builds thing that we had discussed, or did you guys not go for that?
I just see quick builds.
Had ensure that funding commitments are adequate to address all urgent projects that are known to be pending or may come up for bicycle facilities prior to the comprehensive transportation plan's completion.
Good catch, thank you. I see it now. Is that a separate item or is that replacing?
I think that's an add-on to quick builds.
Second sentence. Fully fund quick builds to the extent of our capacity for next fiscal year. Ensure that funding is adequate to address all urgent projects that are pending on bicycle transportation prior to the transportation plan.
So, I mean, I think that what are we defining? We're just letting staff will define what urgent means? Or?
Yes.
I think urgent as in, opportunities popping up that we'll miss our chance on, right, is what we're talking about. Things like Cherry's getting repaved.
Okay.
Could we say time sensitive?
Pressing, time sensitive, sure.
Time sensitive.
Yeah, I think that makes, okay.
Yeah.
That
That's a
makes
better
more
word.
sense now.
Would you like those again, or shall we vote? I'll do it. I'm crazy.
I think, is everyone clear?
I'm clear, I'm good.
Are you clear?
Lyle can send you
Taking
his.
notes, but I also will be rewatching the recording when I work on minutes for this.
Happy to email this to you.
All right,
Yeah, if you could email me, that'd be great.
Dan, can you call the vote?
Right. Commissioner Stoli Yates,
Aye.
Commissioner Duranzio,
Aye.
Commissioner Stolzenberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Yoder,
Yes.
Commissioner Rutger,
Yep.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Chairman Schwartz.
Yes.
Passes across the board. Mr. Stoli Yates, could you please email that list to me?
You want it too?
Yes, please. I'm the one who has to write the memo now, so.
I'm sorry.
I like the list.
So that is our agenda, right? That's it. So I guess the next item is, Rory, how long have you been on the planning commission?
Since, I think, forever, probably.
Forever, okay, forever.
Yeah.
Well, I guess.
2018.
Do they, what do you need? Oh, well, I guess, yeah, do you guys have any follow-up?
No, that, you all had very robust conversation on the,
Can we get it one more time?
yeah.
It'll be in your packet.
No, but I do want to, at this point, just officially end the city council
Oh, sorry.
meeting, but we want to be here for Rory. What you going to say?
Okay. Well, I don't really have anything eloquent to say except thank you, Rory, because you've, you've definitely been a major contribution. You will be missed. I hope you will be in the audience. Or emailing us.
observing. I'll be on a beach.
On a beach, okay. Yeah. You can email us from a beach.
And to follow along as a parting gift, when I joined the Planning Commission 3 years ago, we recognized that apparently with all the equipment we had, we did not have a dedicated laser pointer, and I donated it, the official stolen from the Charlottesville Planning Commission laser pointer, and cat toy, which I hereby present to you properly.
Well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Well, before I just want to, just on behalf of City Council and others may have something to say. Again, I've said this before, I just want to thank you for your dedication and service, particularly of this recently just, over the lawsuit and your help in gathering that information so that we could end that and we could now implement more fully the new zoning ordinance. So thank you. We're so fortunate in this community to have the expertise of individuals like yourselves up there to make things like this possible. So thank you so much and hope that you get your, 15, 20 hours a week that you dedicate to this, maybe even more, I'm not sure, but yeah, that means more, that you have that time now to spend for yourself. And you can come to the Planning Commission meetings and you can email City Council.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I would just add, I've appreciated your time, and I think one of the valuable things I think you've contributed to the city in this role is that you're not afraid to disagree, and I think I generally mean that's a good thing. Sometimes people are afraid to disagree, and I've always found when we've had disagreements, you're always extremely thoughtful and stick to the arguments or issues you've changed my mind on, and I just really appreciated that perspective you've been able to offer on the Planning Commission, and as others said, I think you've made a direct positive impact on multiple areas of the city, so thank you for your service.
Thanks.
I just wanted to add, and please don't interpret this as damning with faint praise. It's not intended that way. It's actually damning with high praise. You think differently from the way that I do. And it's very helpful to me to hear from people who think differently about the same problem from the way that I do. And I've learned a lot from you. Thank you.
Thanks.
I certainly won't be left out. Although I did think the mayor did a great job of summarizing how we feel about the contributions you've made and the incredible support you've given our staff and our community with your absolutely encyclopedic knowledge of everything and the ability to, I mean, I know I've had the luck of knowing you well enough to call you to confirm things about, wait, I thought it was this. Figure out, what was it? And then you're like, oh, as per this, and this, it's really helpful getting to the bottom of past protocol and past things that have happened up on the dais. But beyond that, you have been helpful in teaching and guiding not just me, but other people who are wanting to be urbanists or forward-thinking people about how we can better shape our city. And I really appreciate the effort you've gone into posting in all of the different places, as well as the very comprehensive and thorough feedback that we get to council. And I know you're gonna get some time back, but hopefully we continue to get some input from you moving forward. Thanks for everything.
I'll chime in on just, I'm new, but I've watched everything going through the zoning ordinance change. And I kind of, like you, like I'll think one or two steps into it and then Roy will come out with like, bah, 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 bah. And I just really appreciate learning from you. Because I feel like I'm more of a general, trying to tie things together and you can like dig right to the bottom and seem to be up on all things. No, I'm just kidding. But you know, I just appreciate having that knowledge in the group. So
I'm sorry, I must add. It's been just such a joy to work with you over these years, over maybe 100 different things, maybe 1,000 different things. It's innumerable. And just your passion and your energy, I will never understand or relate to in any way, but I respect it. Thank you.
I gave you the laser pointer.
So there have literally been moments when I wanted to choke the living daylights out of you. But you know, but at the end of the day, when I sit back and I listen to your reasoning, I have to say, okay, if you could just say it a different way, I'd probably go along with them. And you know, what I mean, when I put my translator on and I hear it a different way, I say, oh, damn, he's right. And you've been right more often than you've been wrong. You've also been quite the lightning rod. And you know, I've gotten burned a couple of times as you've been struck by lightning. But you persevered in spite of the pushback that you get from many who disagreed with where you were trying to take the city. So I want to congratulate you for being so persistent in your beliefs. So thank you.
Thanks.
I just want a quick add. Thanks, Rory. We first worked on the downtown planning committee. I think it's the first time I sat in a meeting with you, and right away I knew you were kind of committed and had such great insight, and the dedication was really inspirational. And so again, I hope stay your level of commitment and your sort of level of inquisitiveness. I hope I can carry that forward in whatever capacities I help out the city. So thanks, Rory.
Well, when I first joined the Planning Commission in September 2018, we were most of the way done with the comp plan. Figured we'd knock that out by early, mid 2019, and then maybe another year for the zoning rewrite. And quick 2 years, and I'd be out of here. So you too can be tricked into staying on here for more than 7 years and remember everything. You guys will all get there one day. But really, it's been a pleasure serving with all of you. And looking back, going all the way back to those comp plan meetings in 2019 and 2018. It's been remarkable how much we've done along the way. I'm very proud of what we've all accomplished here. Now implementing it all is going to be up to you guys. So I hope you guys will stay on top of it, stay in the weeds as much as you can, pay attention to the details, and make sure that we make this comprehensive plan vision for the city work out, not just through the zoning ordinance, but in the coming comprehensive transportation plan, in executing the projects that we have in our CIP that we've been awarded through Smart Scale, that hopefully very soon we will see breaking ground on the things that Lyle and I were on committees for reviewing when we had first been awarded them back in 2018. I look forward to seeing where the city will go. So thank you all.
That it? All right, Mr. Chair, I had this whole thing prepared about this being John Milton's 417th birthday or something, and snarky comments about it being better to, rule in hell than serve in heaven, and the appropriateness of all that. But in light of the evening, I just want to point out that in honor of the season, it happens to be National Pastry Day, which I think is something where, as much disagreement as we have, we can all agree that we can go out and celebrate that. And let's adjourn. And happy ho-ho, everybody.
Second.
Good night, everyone.